This is Todd Raffel with ERE Media, and I'm here at the ERE conference in Hollywood, Florida with Ted Daywalt from Vet Jobs. He started this job board, Vet Jobs for military hiring veterans. And Ted and I have been talking just the last few minutes, last hour at the lunch here about the unemployment rate among veterans. There's been so much respect paid toward veterans now, they're such an admired part of our society now, and everyone seems to talk about how veterans should be, great material for companies, but is that happening, Ted? Is that really?
It is happening now, and it's happening now better than ever in the past. I think there's more appreciation for what the military candidates bring to a corporation. I was of the Vietnam era, and I can remember people coming back from Vietnam who would be injured, and they would tell an employer that they had a car wreck, and that's why they lost an arm or walked with a limp or whatever, because they didn't want to admit that they'd been in Vietnam. Today, it's the other way around. If employers want to hire people come out of the military, because with an all-volunteer force for the last 39 years, the military has become one of the most technologically driven organizations in the country. It's not just cutting edge anymore, they are the bleeding edge. And much of the technology that's used by companies today is coming out of the military to the civilian world rather than from the civilian world into the military.
How is that actually playing out in the cold hard data? Is the unemployment rate among veterans high or low or about the same?
The unemployment rate for veterans is actually, for the last 25 years, has always been lower than the overall unemployment rate. We had a study done that went back to 1986 using the Bureau of Labor Statistic numbers, and every year the overall unemployment for veterans was 1% to 3% lower than the non-veteran or the overall unemployment rate. Right now, the unemployment rate nationally is 9.6%. The unemployment rate for veterans for all veterans is 8%. But where we do have a problem is in the younger veteran market space, i.e. the 18 to 24-year-old veteran. For a person to be a veteran in that age group, if they were on active duty, they're still finishing out their 4, their 6, or their 8-year obligation. So the people that fit the unemployment rate of the 18 to 24-year-old veteran are members of the National Guard. And due to DOD's call-up policy of 12 to 24 months, many companies don't want to hire as a new employee an active member of the National Guard because they're going to get taken away for 12, 18, or 24 months. The net result is that their unemployment rate for most of this year has been 25.1%. Now, the unemployment rate in September fell for that age group, 18 to 24, fell to 19%. But we expect that's going to be going back up as more people from the National Guard come back from Afghanistan and Iraq.
I've noticed a number of companies have new pushes to either hire more people from the military or, if nothing else, talk about their military hiring online. Sodexo, Microsoft, you mentioned Rockwell. Anything you can tell us about Rockwell?
Rockwell has always hired military, but they've seen such great results from the military people they bring in, especially being a technological and a communication company like Rockwell is. And they need people with security clearances. They're starting a concerted effort. But even companies that don't need security clearances or the high technology go after the military. You've read the articles about Walmart and Target. BNSF Railway is a great example of people that what they were after were the people that had the leadership skills. Recently, Yum Brands, people that own Kentucky Fried Chicken, started to realize that people coming out of the military make great store managers. And they come in, they're managing a KFC franchise. It's a business unit with $3 to $5 million worth of business. And what they're after is that leadership skill that military person brings. And the military has changed so much from the 1970s to today. In the 1970s, 1 in 10 people who worked in America had been in the military. Today it's 1 in 250 and growing. It's because we had this all-volunteer force. Back in the 1970s, less than 5% of our military was married. Today it's like 68% are married with a family. It's a whole different dynamic. In the past, very few in the enlisted personnel had any college education. Today, on active duty, 30% have a bachelor's degree and 2% have a master's degree. If you roll in the Guard and Reserve, that number goes up to almost 60%. There are no workforces out in most of America where 60% of your workforce have college degrees. And with all that education as well as the training that they get in the military, they have become very valued employees, and a big part of it is because they can become active participants and contributors to a company immediately.
And as was brought up yesterday, Speaker Reggie Stewart from Sodexo, it's probably the most diverse group
yes.
of anywhere.
Yes, when you talk about diversity, both in ethnicity, in religion, any type of diversity label that you want to use, it exists in the military.
Yeah.
Which is why hiring military helps companies with their OFCCP requirements, their VEVRA and JVA requirements, and of course EEOC requirements. But the military candidates bring an awful lot to a company. Now, I hear from some HR people, they say, oh, we hired some military and they quit. And I always like to ask them, well, what did you have them doing? Mm-hmm. And generally it's because they put them in a menial job. When you had someone that had a lot of responsibility and you give them something that goes down in their mind. I use an example. I was speaking at a CEO conference one time, and I was introduced for the different companies I'd run, not from my military background. And one of the CEOs said they were looking for good, strong managers that they could bring in and promote up to vice president. So I said, well, why don't you introduce a JMO hiring program or senior enlisted hiring program? And he said,
Junior military officers.
He said, oh, no. I need people with real world experience.
Right.
Well, after I got done biting my tongue, I said, Mike, you don't know this, I'm a retired Navy captain. How many of your vice presidents have to go to a school for 10 weeks, and on every Friday they get a test? And they don't have to just pass tests, they have to do outstanding or you fire them. And then when they get out on the job, they're managing about 15 people, about $80 million. It's a tremendous ratio. And they have all these collateral duties they didn't know they were going to get. And if they make a mistake with their equipment, they take Duval County off the face of the earth. And he looked at me, Ted, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
He said, I just gave you the basic job description of a weapons officer on a frigate in Mayport, Florida. And by the way, she turns 23 next month.
It's unbelievable. Yeah, I've heard people describe people who have flown fighter planes as like not intellectual or not smart enough, and I can't comprehend the amount of multitasking and information and intelligence that you would have to fly some of these planes.
And that's you're touching right on the nerve of it there, Todd, because when you bring a military person in, understand what you're bringing in and understand that they've had a tremendous amount of responsibility. When you're flying a fighter plane up there, you have to make split-second decisions. And that's another thing, reason why a lot of people like to bring people in from the military. In the business environment, you frequently have to make decisions with not all the information available. And so you have to understand how to cope with and how to analyze risk. In the military, we do that on a daily basis, but instead of losing money if we make a mistake, people lose lives.
Yeah.
So going from that environment to an environment where, well, the worst thing that could happen is we might lose a little bit of money, they can make decisions quicker, faster, and 99% of the time better.
Thanks a lot, Ted. This has been really interesting. Thanks a lot, and have a good rest of the week.
Thank you.